Yeah, like I was streaming. I had done like 1754 on Steam, and when I was messing around and going with the live streaming stuff, and it was way easier to figure out than any of this nonsense.
Yeah, like I think the only thing I've ever streamed is Blood Bowl, like the PC game,
Uh huh.
and I it was like easy enough to where I don't remember like have it like I don't even remember the config. So it's just like I was able to stream Blood Bowl and had people like message me in chat being like, "Oh, it's Blood Bowl," because
Speaking
that
of
was like my. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say speaking of Blood Bowl, we're here tonight. Welcome to History Off the Table. We're talking miniature gaming tonight. With me is my buddy Caleb. Caleb and I we play RPGs together. That's probably a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's a good assessment. Hello.
Yeah. How you doing?
I am good.
Good. You got a cocktail or
I do. It's my.
oh shit.
I mean, you've heard me say this like 20 times now. Where it's I have a Negroni that I'm drinking.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a Negroni tonight. I've got some vermouth. I had some Martinez's last week. I'm out of cherries, so I was like, oh, I'll just make a Negroni. And time got away from me, and it was like 7:45, and we still had to get set up. So I was like, well, looks like it's a beer night. So,
What type of beer you got, actually?
so I live a couple blocks away from. It's called Martin City. It's just a local. It's not
Okay.
great stuff. They're like, they have some limited releases that are pretty good, but like they're just canned stuff is fine. And I'm part of their beer club, so I get 4 6 packs a month, which
Oh
is a
hell
pretty
yeah.
good deal. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Some things are way better than others. Like I wish their brown ale was a little bit better. It's not
Because I'm
bad,
also
but
dual fisting.
oh, what's that?
The also local brewery. I forgot what they're called. The NA stands for something that's not written anywhere else in the can. New Anthem. There it is.
New
From
Anthem.
Wilmington, North Carolina. And it's
Okay.
an IPA. Because I
Yeah.
too am.
So I think I've told you like North Carolina is one of my wife's favorite spots, and actually, I think it's both of our favorite spots. We both like going to North Carolina a lot. So
It's cool. Like the best beaches. As a kid, I'm from West Virginia originally, but I like we went to the beaches for years. Like from the time I was like 8 until I graduated high school.
yeah,
And then I'm in the Triangle area now, and it's spoils you.
yeah. We really liked. You know what? And we'll get to miniatures real soon here, folks. Like the whole state actually is pretty dope. Like West North Carolina, like Asheville, is
Oh,
sick,
dude.
and then our time in Raleigh, dude. We ate at so many places and had. We went to like this cafeteria place that had all this local beer.
Oh,
Um,
the is that? Oh, I know what you're talking about. I just can't
there's a
remember the name of
couple of them,
it. Yeah.
and one of them's by the old practice facility, like I don't know, a couple miles. But like, so we fly in, and our Airbnb is at like 3 o'clock, and we get lunch at noon, and we have like our big tow behind blue suitcases, and we just get smashed. And we're having all these local beers, and we're talking with this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I met Scott Darling. He's a really nice guy. I hope he has a good hockey career." And of course, Scott Darling's not playing hockey anymore, or at least not in the NHL. But we had a blast, and it's like our Airbnb is only like half a mile, 3/4 miles away. You just want to walk, and we're pretty lit. And so like our first experience as Raleigh is my wife and I mean, we're tugging our luggage down the street, and there happens to be like no sidewalk, and then like just looks super trashy, and we walk up to this guy's house, Vince, the guy with Airbnb, and he's like, "Surely those aren't my Airbnb guests." And like who else is gonna be walking down your neighborhood street with luggage in tow at like 2:30 in the morning, probably stumbling all over the place? So, anyways,
Oh
that's
man,
a short story told long. So
that's
yeah, and
glorious
then
though.
Outer Banks, of course. Well, Caleb and I playing in Outer Banks RPG, so big fan of that area. So, Caleb, I stole the show there. Why don't you tell people about yourself and a little bit about your miniature background and all that good stuff?
Sure. So for myself, I'll keep it pretty short. I'm just because in a lot of ways, I'm just like your out of the box nerd. I'd say I grew up in West Virginia, so that's fairly interesting because it's like it's a weird state in my opinion for the East Coast. It's so rural.
Sure.
like even compared to other areas. Because like North Carolinians, that's the thing cracks up with them. Like this is rural, and they're like, I'm from West Virginia. They're just like, oh God. I'm like, is it that bad? It's not that bad. So it's all chill. But outside of that, went to WU for school, did
Okay.
computers, and I've been working on computers for probably like 10 years now, which finances all of my nerdy hobbies that I have.
Yeah. Nice.
Highlight miniatures. Like I've been miniatures I can like really get it like as far as like the origin story for that. I was in a Walden Books the
Okay.
year
Yeah.
the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring came out, and they had a little box that said like Fellowship of the Ring miniatures game on the side of it. I was like, what the heck is this? Because I was a Lego kid. Like I love Legos as a
Mm-hmm.
kid. So I grabbed it, saw what it was, and was just immediately like, Mom, I want this. And luckily it had been good, so she like got it for me, which was the biggest mistake in life. Because then it's like all I ever asked for the rest of my like childhood was ever since then, it's like I literally this past Christmas I asked for miniatures for
Hell
Christmas.
yeah. Yeah.
So I play like I because it had that gamesworkshop.com URL in the back of it, and I just punched that into whatever browser on back then and just Googled miniatures and got them. So
Nice.
I've been doing it for 20 at least 20 years straight
Dang.
now.
And Lord of the Rings was your intro, huh?
Yeah, I got the Lord of the Rings box and I got the big set for Christmas for my birthday that year because I think Lord of the Rings released in theaters on Christmas. Then within 6 months, I got the Warhammer Fantasy Battle Game starter set, and then that following Christmas, I got the Warhammer 40,000 third edition. Is where we were.
Wow. Yeah. We're on
Box
ninth.
set.
For those unfamiliar, they just came out with ninth edition. So
Yeah, and Warhammer Fantasy Battles doesn't exist anymore.
no, but you do know there's a new one coming, right?
Yeah, I were like, what was it last week? It's just like the Magic the Gathering thing posted. We were just like,
Yeah.
just tell us something else about the old world. Stop doing this
Right.
stuff.
Anything. Yeah.
Just
So
scared.
how long did it take you then to go from like 40K to, because I also know you do a lot of historical miniature gaming as well. So
Oh
like
yeah,
how long before you dipped into the historical stuff?
that would have been way like a long time actually. Because so
Okay.
what happened there was they somewhere in like college, War Machine comes out, which is
Sure.
another miniatures game, and GW has this like real like rough spot for like its release stuff. Like there was a I saw the graphs a while back, but like there was a time like 8 years ago where like people were like, "Is this? Are they going to stick around?" Because it was The Hobbit. Really, that did not go well, and fantasy was not making any money in the states, so they killed it.
Okay.
I started playing War Machine and like doing the tournament scene for that real heavy
Uh-huh.
for probably like 2 or 3 years, and then got real burnout on tournaments as a thing for
Sure.
miniatures.
Sure.
So when I left that, I was like kind of just like, well, but not really doing Warhammer right now because I had completely purged out of anything that still had rules, and then purged out of my War Machine stuff. But I was at the game store and saw that they had like the bolt action miniatures.
Okay.
I was like, oh, these are cool. I freaking love Band of Brothers and all kinds of other history stuff. Played was it Close Combat on PC back in the day, like, and so love that stuff. Picked those up, and then hooked up with those guys. And that was probably like 2015,
Okay.
and just went ham with that a little bit. Like,
Yeah. Like you do.
and then from there, it's just like historicals is dangerous because like there's like freaking 2000 like thousands of years of history, and
Sure.
there are legitimately miniatures for most of it.
Right.
Like
Right.
you could do anything. And the other fun slash crazy thing about it is it basically I was one of these people that was like, whatever's in this rule book is what I have to use, and I have to use the miniatures that way. And with historicals, it's like there's 12 different rules for the same historical period. Which ones do you want to play?
Sure.
And what miniatures do you want to buy? So you're just like all of a sudden like, what if I do this like sci-fi and other fantasy stuff and now there's just mountains of figurines in my
Yeah, yeah, I could imagine. I'm trying to be. Now my wife's listening to this, so I have to be really careful with what I admit to and don't admit to here. Um, I'm trying to be mindful of that because I don't want to end up with mountains and mountains of dudes, especially unplayed mountains and mountains of dudes. Because the biggest hurdle for me getting into war or miniature wargaming, I had HeroScape, right? I played HeroScape in high school, loved it. Everything was pre-painted, the terrain was pre-painted, and you assembled it. And I actually have two sets and some of the expansions that I still have. But the barrier of entry was so low. The barrier of entry with anything with miniatures, and I've tried a couple times over the year, never had as much fun as I'm having right now. It's always been painting. And I know that if I start, picking up all of these dudes or gals, I'm going to use dudes a lot tonight just to refer to little plastic pieces. But that could be anything. I just know then it's going to be like, maybe I don't want to paint because I've got, 60,000 dudes that I need to go worry about. So I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to be sensible about how I get into this hobby, but all of it is so flipping cool.
That's the problem, or the crisis. It's like it's so cool, and you're just like, oh, I gotta like get the thing. Or like this year was bad because I was worried for some of the indie guys to like go out, and I had heard those horror stories before. So
Sure.
there was a couple of like big buys for certain indie companies, just so I was like, I'm doing my part. Like, please stay in business.
Yeah. Gotta help the little guys.
So
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like there is, and you've hit on this, but there's a million different things you could choose to support. Just with like historical, not only the different miniatures you could buy or the 3D printing, which I don't really foresee us going into a lot tonight, but like, so not only the little pieces of plastic you can buy, but rule sets, right? I mean, you go on like drive through RPG or Wargame Vault or whatever. It's like now everyone's got their own rule set. So it's a lot of stuff.
I think there were like at least 2 different samurai rule sets this last year that came out.
Wow. Yeah.
Just like, because the thing is, like, I could technically like sit down, read a couple Ospreys, and like tippy type stuff on how like some D6 will hit a dude and publish it to Drive Through RPG or
Sure,
Drive Through
right.
Wargaming thing.
Yeah, and some of that stuff looks great. I mean, it's not all just someone doing that.
Yeah.
Like well, we'll talk about game specifics, but there's several like Chain of Command, which that's two indie guys, right? I mean, I know they're big name. That's two fat lardies.
Yeah,
Right?
Two Fat Lardies. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's such a good game. It's
And
crazy good.
I mean, that's just a small group, right? I mean, I know they're a big scene in miniature gaming, but like that's not like Games Workshop or Osprey or
2 dudes in England.
yeah, right.
Like,
So
just they don't even, and the thing that's cool about them is that I like is they don't produce miniatures themselves
uh-huh.
because they're like their thing about that is like if you make the miniatures and the rules, you're gonna write those rules to sell the miniatures.
Sure, of
And
course.
yeah, and they're like, and we want to write our rules to like reflect whatever historical period we're currently geeking out about. That does mean that getting certain rules that you want from them that they say they're going to make can be a 6 month to 4 year situation because they will pivot like maniacs.
Sure, just like we do, though, right? I mean, my
Oh
interest
yeah.
in historical gaming or Euro games or whatever, and I mean that's the other thing. Like, I have a wide range of historical interests, right? I mean, you just look at that shelf back there, and then you find out there's a wide range of miniature interests. Like, it's easy not to, replicate that trend. So, at what point did you start? I'll pull it up here. What point did you start Den of the Wendigo? When did you start making this like a blogging hobby?
That was about the same time I got back into historicals and was like,
Okay,
I mean, admittedly, I haven't like hit that blog a ton, which is like one of the big kicks because I go between doing it and just like putting stuff on Twitter when I'm good.
sure. Oops. Yeah. I'm looking at some of the stuff. One of the things that when I was checking out your blog is this cheerleader from Malifaux. Dude,
Oh yeah,
I
Molly
don't know if it's a
Squidpitch.
cheerleader. If she's I think she may be holding flowers, but to me, she looks like a cheerleader. Uh, she just looks awesome. I don't even know what
Thank you.
Malifaux is, but
It is a weird game, is what it's like Western steampunk stuff,
oh,
but it really because there was like their window of time. Like what I said, GW was doing like not great in my personal opinion. Like late 2000, like late 2000 teens, like 2011, 2012,
Sure.
like right before they killed fantasy.
Okay.
And you had these other publishers, Privateer Press with War Machine being the big one. And I'd say Weird Games, Malifaux being the other one, where they made these games that were a lot funner, that took some new ideas and did a lot of with them. So they
Okay.
started to like show up and make a big splash. I think what helped them out a lot is they got into the War Machine ones, inadvertently had some guys start podcasting about it.
Ah.
So that was huge because you had a lot of podcasts chain off through that.
Hmm.
And they had like this huge heyday, but they've kind of like tampered out, not to mention the fact Games Workshop's Age of Sigmar releases initially was like weird ground, but turned into an absolute gangbusters franchise
Sure.
for them.
Sure. So my understanding is we've talked about a few different things, and just because like I went down this rabbit hole just 2 weeks ago and it was a lot of information to take in, so just like big picture stuff. 40k is, or Warhammer 40,000 is big army sci-fi, Kill Team is small scale skirmish sci-fi, Age of Sigmar is one fantasy setting in the Warhammer universe for big armies, and then there's Warcry, which is skirmish, and then there's an older game that was rank and file, right? And that was fantasy, which is another fantasy setting for Warhammer. And then there's
It was the OG.
which
There's
we will
Necromunda.
we'll talk about as well. And then there's other like box sets games like with Titans, but those are kind of the main ones. Oh, and Underworlds,
Yes.
which is like a card driven.
Yeah, Underworlds was their like big. I think they were trying to like, can we get the War Machine types and the Magic the Gathering types and get it into one type of game? And that's what their goal was there.
And it's really small scale. I will say that there's two things that brought me in. One, my brother and his buddy were playing Underworlds and all this other stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, Underworlds is super easy to get to. The blue guys right here, there's about 5 of them. Like, that's all I need to run in Underworlds. I mean, assuming my brother like has the map. Like, you can buy the box with the map and the cards and all that. But the factions are very small. You're not painting hundreds of miniatures. It's like a handful of guys, and that's it.
Which that's a nice thing. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I will say 9th edition, from what I can tell from like list crunching and stuff, is it has cut the size down again.
Yeah, I did make a 2,000 point list for like the giveaway they were doing, and try to win some free minis and stuff. And like at the end of the list making, I was like, there's not a ton of guys on here, and I think that's been the general consensus of 9th edition is crunch that down a little bit.
Yeah, they just want to make it. Well, what they figured out is like the more armies a single individual collects, the better for them. But there are people that are like,
sure.
there are people like that focus in. Like, I'm always jealous. The joke I always make is the Tyranid player is what I usually call this person, because if I've ever seen someone who does this, where they're just like, I like one thing in this game, and it is Tyranids, and they're the guy who has like 200 grunts, like the little classic alien bug monster. They have 200 of them. Like, it's always the Tyranid guy at like my local store who has like just Tyranids, and everyone else is like, I have like 6 different armies in various sizes or whatever. But then you have the Tyranid guy who's like, Tyranids are the best. Like, nothing
So
will beat
Zergs
them.
were stolen from Tyranids, for anyone who's familiar with StarCraft but not Warhammer stuff. And there's I want to talk about like some current things we're enjoying, but just real quick, the big thing that drew me in was, one, there's a miniature coming out of a Battle Sister in a Gundam, basically. So you have nuns in a Gundam, and I was like, oh, that's the straw that broke the camel back. But the straw that lured the camel like into the barn, Cursed City.
Yeah, that
Which
stuff's
is
nonsense.
It's a boxed. Let me pull this up here. It's a boxed game, kind of in. They've done some other boxed board game-esque games, and the setting of Cursed City is just money for me. Like, it's perfect. I mean, look at these zombies that have like their gravestones stacked on their backs. It's amazing. Are you in on Cursed City?
I am like going back. Have we found out the price tag yet? Because I want it.
No.
Yeah,
Right.
I want it,
have
but
a
I just got to
limit, but-
see. I got to see what that's going to be before I go, because they've the thing that's got me scared is the Necromunda set because how much that was.
Right. Right.
But I'm wondering if they're just going to like they pulled off some crazy stuff like the retail for the Indominus box. Like what
Yep.
if you broke that all up into what it costs and just buy an Indominus box? It's impossible to feel bad about buying that box.
Well, I feel the same way about Dark Uprising. What I thought was a ripoff was the recent Kill Team box, which I passed hard on.
Oh
There's a
yeah,
Kill Team
that thing.
box that came with some heavy intercessors, which is a type of Space Marine, and some Necrons, which are like the skeleton dudes. Just um, that was bad on many levels. I think Indomitus was a great value, especially because my brother and I split it, and then
Oh
Dark
yeah,
Uprising. This pointing never works for me. Dark Uprising, I think, is a shit ton of plastic for the price.
that's true. That is true.
So I hope they follow that trend more than what they did with the new Kill Team box, because that was and I think they want to draw people in with Cursed City, so I think they'll make that more affordable and then draw you in with the expansions.
Yeah. If they want me to like, because I'm like still, I panic bought an Age of Sigmar army last year
Uh huh. Which one?
because I was like, Loonkin, Cursed Loonkin,
Nice.
little goblin dudes. I bought. Well, it was nice because there was like two guys that were like getting rid of some stuff, and they both had the Loon Curse, and I was like, all right, I'll do those. And then I found my LGS Curse Their Hides had one of the discontinued boxes still on the shelf. So it was like I was like that sucker goes double on eBay. So I just like bought it at retail so that I had it with all this extra stuff. So now I have mountains of goblins that are not painted.
They'll
One
get
day,
you. They'll get you.
yeah, it's just like pick. The worst is like the once you don't have to worry about it now, but like LGS trades can be real dangerous because you like someone's like, oh yeah, I have this because they impulse bought something, and then you just like end up having this micro economy within your community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worst thing about those
Uh,
kill team boxes is the Necron side. There's so much more like it's that thing where like everyone wants all the Space Marine stuff because Space Marines are Games Workshop's bread and butter. So
sure.
you have so much Necron, so it's like trying to eBay them. It's like
Hmm.
they just sit there.
Yeah. Right. If you can sell parts of the box you're not going to use, they're a lot more approachable. But the Dark Uprising factions, I love them both, which is basically skipping ahead of here a little bit. Dark Uprising in that box, it's basically Judge Dredd and like crazed cannibals, which is awesome. So
I
sign me up.
Yeah, I want to say a lot of 40K. I'd have to go back and double check, which we can link this in the show note. There's a blog site called We Are the Mutants, and they have an article about Warhammer 40K's like old roots
Yeah.
because it was like back when 40K was radical, I think is the title of it.
Uh huh.
But I think those guys that originally created 40K were just like mega Judge Dredd nerds, like the
Well,
old comic.
yeah. So the comic originates out of the UK, and it was like a weekly deal. It may have even had the daily run, and like you can still subscribe to the magazine. By the way, the Judge Dredd comics are awesome, and the recent Dredd movie is like one of the best action movies I've seen probably in my life. Just like pure action, tons of fun. It's dope.
It's real cool. I really like the movie. I've never read the comics, but it's always been one of the only thing I was introduced to Judge Dredd by the fact that it existed in Hero Clicks.
Nice.
So that's how I knew about it initially.
Sure, sure, sure. Well, there's something called Complete Case Files, and they're fantastic collections of the. I mean, they go the whole span. They have the older stuff. The older stuff's fun. Like it's nothing. Like it's not groundbreaking comics. It's
Right.
but it's fun to go back to. Let's back up a little bit, and then we can go back to some of these games. And I thought we could maybe share just some stuff we're working on,
Sure.
like current projects or whatever. So I did a little live stream. I was just gonna show a quick little update on that stuff. So this is the yellow guy I did in that live stream, and I'm gonna save him as a before. But my whole goal is to do contrast paints, and what I've learned is with the yellow contrast, you can't let this orange pool up, or you end up with orange.
Yeah.
Now, some colors aren't as bad. Here's a black contrast the black is a little boring to me. I want to go yellow and red.
Talk about another
but-
good idea they made was that freaking paint line.
Oh, it's so nice. So I've got those guys going. I'm going to retry the yellow. I've just got to get some guys reprimed. But in the meantime, I've been working on my Untamed Beasts for Warcry. And this is all in contrast. And, like, I can't imagine trying to do skin tones and, like, bone detail and
It's
let like any of this with real paint. Like this is all basically automatic and me just rubbing crap all over it.
it's yeah, that's like it makes it so much easier because man, flesh is still the bane of my existence.
Dude, it is. I am very happy with this because anything I've tried before, if you go watch that video, there's like a zombie I painted a couple years ago, and it's just like it's not good. But I'm keeping him as well as or the zombie as a where I came from. But so that's one of my projects. What are you working on?
Oh, snap. Let's see here. Tonight was building galls for Infamy.
Oh, what's Infamy? Infamy.
It is the latest Too Fat Lardies game that is
Okay.
basically this is the reason I was pinging about classics the other day in chat was or classical era was it's Caesar's Wars.
Okay.
So you got Romans, like late Republican, early Imperial Romans, and then Gauls, Brits, Germans,
Nice.
and it's like chain of command scale. It
So
seems
how
to
does
be
that compare to something like
good.
Saga?
The big thing I would say about Saga is Saga's doing what Saga's more in like the limelight of the what I call like the Malifaux War Machine games, where Guild Ball's like this too. It's all in this slot. There's like these. It's kind of like League of Legends tabletop edition. Is how I always feel about it. Like every faction has these like super like these special moves that
Okay.
are a limited resource you can use when you fight each other.
Okay.
Some people like the joke they make is it's like the wombo combo. Like your goal is to put the dudes on the table and then do the wombo combo at your opponent based on whatever faction you're playing.
And that is true. That's how you're saying Saga plays.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just more straightforward. Your guys are statted out and don't have special moves.
Somewhat he had like the Lari's guys they have like I want to say I've been talking about like they're the type of game designers who their games have a thesis to them for sure.
Okay.
And their thesis are usually like this is how they think like these dudes fought. So for Infamy, there's two sub rule systems. One is for like, if you're Roman, if you're Republican Roman or Imperial Romans, then drill is very important, and drill allows you to do a couple moves like the Tetsudo, triple axes, like the shield walls and cover and stuff. If you're barbarian, your guys can build this resource called fervor over time,
Uh-huh.
and it makes them hit harder, move quicker, and be able to sustain losses more. But if they run out of fervor, then suddenly they're gonna have a real hard time. So it's can the Roman drill prevent the barbarians from like breaking through? And in historical times, you had situations where both occurred. Like sometimes the Romans were able just to wear out barbarians, whereas other times, like I forgot the name of that forest is where the Germans just like wiped out that legion, like Tenenbaum or something.
I was looking this game up right now and I googled two fat lardies and I accidentally typed two fat ladies.
It is a crisis that happens consistently.
All right, so here's wow, this looks cool. I love that cover.
It's on Facebook with his art because does really good art. He's done
And so
he's done like 3 book covers for them.
you're doing Gauls? Is that's what you said? Gauls and what?
Yeah, Gauls is what I'm doing. I've got a buddy who's going to do Imperial Romans. I might build Republican Romans as well. And then
I'm gonna have to send this to my brother. I don't know if he's watching, but
the best thing is those miniatures. I will tell you what miniatures to get once if he does it because Victrix limited stuff is like crazy nice for what it is, and you get so many dudes for what it costs. Because I was looking tonight, and I think I have like 45 guys, and I paid $30 for it.
Wow.
So
All right, I pinged it to him. I pinged it in our Discord channel, which you can join. All you got to do is tell us that, hey, you want to join our Discord channel. Just because the link's invite, it's not exclusive in any kind of way. Unless you're an a-hole, and then you get kicked. But that hasn't happened. It's a pretty cool place. So just holler at me if you want an invite, and then I'll get you one over there. So that looks dope. So another thing I'm working on. All right, let's talk about Moonshine, which this actually happened before Curse City. This is thanks to Adam over at Chance of Gaming Podcast. I love the aesthetic of this game.
they look rad.
So I tried to paint a guy tonight, and I think I need super glue. So I was going to build this giant, and I've got my this plastic magic has been like a dream for my Warhammer stuff.
What are they made out of? Are they resin?
They must be. It's not. It doesn't say on the box, so I guess use super glue. Is that what I should do?
Yeah, that guy totally looks like he's resin. So that's going to
Okay.
be. There's also this. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. I'll show you what it is.
Well, while he's grabbing that, I'll show off. So, the big moneymaker here, and like the way I'm gonna try to convince Kat to play is there's Doug, the flatulent who rides a pug into battle. There's all kinds of wacky stuff. Like it's a very whimsical game. One of the factions have like a frog they inflated to be their airship. All right, what do you got there?
I think they refer to it as like Instaflex is what I would Google,
Okay,
which is neat. Is because they'll. I guess you can commission them to do like stickers for your stores, whatever. Because my local game store says it on there,
okay,
but it is gold for resin. It's just like a very
okay.
high, quick seal, like super glue.
So plastic magic does not work on everything then, just plastic,
Yeah,
I guess. Okay.
because it's what that plastic magic does is I forgot what they call it. It's not actually gluing it as it
It's
is
chemical
melting.
react, right? It's a
Yeah,
chemical react, and so like this wasn't melting or gluing together. There's like a flasher in this, and so like the game mechanics look good. They don't look as good as something like Warcry. Warcry looks awesome. I can't wait to actually get together and play it. But this whole aesthetic of like you have like it reminds me of Medieval. Did you ever play that game on PlayStation? OG.
oh yeah, was doing a playthrough of it last month. I'm up
I bought the
to
remake. I just don't know how much it holds up. It's a game I hold in high esteem, but then I go back and play it. And I'm just like, I don't know if I'm
yeah,
gonna kill the dream.
it's like there's some things that are quirky about it. It's the same with the Spyro remakes.
Yeah,
I 100%ed all three of the new Spyro remakes. But I hate that the camera is closer,
then
and
the
I had to
original.
disable. Yeah, and I had to disable the blur.
Okay, sure.
But I still have like
Uh,
all my original games. I thought about getting a now that I have to an RGB to HDMI converter so that
sure,
I could use my PS2 that still runs amazingly. That's what kills me is the fact that you can still turn on a PS2, but like how many Xbox Ones did I go through?
sure. Yeah, I have a PS2. I don't have a PS1 anymore, but I used to be big into collecting retro video games like Ham. Like that was my hobby. Anyways, I've scaled way back, but one of the few things I've kept is my PS1 stuff, including Medieval and Medieval 2.
Yeah. My rule with
Uh,
that stuff is always I go just down to like how if it's a really important game for me, then I get something crazy for it. If it was not, otherwise I just keep away from it.
sure. Yeah, that's a dangerous rabbit hole to go down. Let's see what anything else you're working on?
Um, so I'm bouncing currently the four projects I guess I'm bouncing between are those galls. They're all on this back shelf. Let's see if I'll grab them real quick.
Sure. I'm gonna show off more Moonstone stuff while you're away. I just love it. Everything about this game, it's ridiculous. Let's see. There's also the human dudes. The humans are big time. What remind me of Medieval. And
I need to be more prepared.
no, that's all right. I think
See
you
how,
got to remember you're still plugged into your computer
uh,
before you clothesline yourself.
yeah, that's the thing. I thought
Yeah.
about getting a Blue Yeti to fix that. So first off, I'm trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do with this Primaris Marines.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've been like workshopping different color patterns for them.
Sure.
Then other historical project I'm working on is German Revolution for Chain of Command.
Mm.
So it's like a baby weirdo period. I'm just making collecting miniatures for. So it's like late World War One Germans that I'm painting up from a company
Okay.
called Tsuba Miniatures.
Huh.
And then my Lord of the Rings Battle of Five Armies
Ooh.
miniatures, which these are 10 millimeter,
Wow.
and there's a gajillion of them.
Wow. So, like, what does one guy there on that represent? Like, what scale is that out for five armies?
Um, just a single stand, and I guess like a whole unit would be made of three stands. So
Uh-huh.
like, so you have like you need six of these. Like here's two. You need six of these for like a unit, and then you need like 6 units. So it's like
Wow.
it's a lot of painting 10 mil little dudes, and it. I had to take it. That's the reason I'm shifting projects is because like I was like I gotta take a break from just
Yeah.
doing these little guys. I'm
Right.
gonna go crazy. There are guys that do 6 millimeter stuff.
Yeah, I ventured into the rules of 6 millimeter, and I almost last year bought some 6 millimeter stuff from Bacchus. The only thing that saved me from that is the fact that they don't have their cart open all the time.
Yeah.
Um, which is good because the 6 millimeter game I played on Tabletop Simulator, I just don't know. Like, I don't know if it's
What'd you
gonna have the
play?
same. Oh, there's a Civil War rule set for. I'd have to open up Tabletop Sim.
Was it
It was
Longstreet?
no.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if Chris is in chat. But I played with him and we had a good time. But it's just I don't know. The rule set kind of turned me off from going down the 6 millimeter Civil War hole. Maybe someday, but it was something I thought I'd enjoy, but I don't think I would.
Yeah.
So I want to back up a little bit because one thing I want to hear more about is Chain of Command.
Sure.
So
Um,
tell me what it is. Tell me the scale, and tell me your thoughts on it. I guess. So let's start with I guess what is Chain of Command.
Chain of Command would be a platoon scale World War II tactical tabletop miniatures game.
And just real quick, how does that compare against like Bold Action, which is a World War II miniature game that if you go to a store you'd probably run into?
With Bold Action, it does the Warhammer thing of like you're going to have X amount of points, and there's some parameters around building your army, but
Okay.
you can kind of put whatever you want in your army. So what
Okay.
ends up happening is you end up with World War II armies where it's like 6 SS flamethrower teams and 2 tigers and stuff like that.
Right. Sure.
Whereas Chain of Command's big thing that I like about it is your army lists initially are just whatever nationality's platoon structure is. You get that, and your opponent gets that as well. They'll have a modifier, and then you have support that you can add on to. So you're always going to have like a British platoon, and then you might have like support of a sniper and a Cromwell, whereas the Germans will have like an extra machine gun team and maybe a flamethrower team, and then the German platoon.
Is that dependent on the scenario that you're playing?
Most of the time, yes. Like
Okay.
it also has a campaign system. So the campaign system, like you get, if you're the defender for a campaign system, sometimes they represent your limited resources. It's like you have 26 support points to use throughout this campaign. As you burn them and lose them, you've lost them. Otherwise, a lot of scenarios are like roll a d6 plus 4, both sides get that many support points and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. And so is it one platoon and that's it?
That's all for to play a game. You and your buddy would each need a platoon. Which the one pitch I will say for the Bold Action with the Warlord games is all of their box sets. You buy a box set. That's a platoon most of the time. Like I think
Sure.
the Japanese one, what is like 45 figs, which is their structure platoon structure is a little bit bigger, so it checks out for them.
Hmm.
So
So pretty low hurdle to entry then.
yeah,
Just buy a box and you're
you're good.
good to go for a basic game, huh? Okay. And so what scale does it play at?
It is technically scale agnostic. The
Okay.
3 scales I have seen are 20. Actually, I've seen it in 4 scales, which is 35 millimeter, or no,
Oh.
1/35th. So like tomato size. These lunatics at a con did a Market Garden game in 1/35th scale.
Wow.
I've seen most people do 28 millimeter because
Okay.
it's got the most miniatures, but there are some guys who do it in 15s because it works great in 15s.
Sure. And is it designed primarily for 15?
I think it's probably the guys who designed it use for the most part 28 millimeter,
Okay.
and
Okay.
they're coy with it because we've asked them before. And I think one of the things they said is like I think that the ideal scale would be like 172 scale, like 20 millimeters, which exists as well. That's the other thing about historicals is there's like 50 scales.
Yeah, we've got a Bo. He played. Well, he was the first person I see play Chain of Command, and then you chimed in and said Chain of Command was your jam. But I think he played at 15 millimeter,
Yeah,
and he's painting some stuff too right now.
I saw that. Yeah, no, it's pretty nice in 15s from everything I've seen. Not to mention saves you so much money on terrain because that's where like the historicals will really get you. at least for me, is I was ruined by getting introduced to guys who had a real nice terrain, and now I
Yeah.
have to be like, I need real nice terrain.
I've already decided a long time ago when my brother and I talked about it. My terrain for historical stuff is my Christmas village that I put out with Christmas decorations. I've got plenty of buildings, so
That works,
yep,
man.
we're fighting at Santa's workshop again. Yeah.
It's super good.
All right, and so like you like this game, right? Like this is one of the
It is currently, I because I've yet to play a game of Infamy. It is the best miniatures game I've ever played.
whoa. Like okay, because I also know like you said you really like Necromunda as well, but
I
this
do.
is your shit, huh?
Yeah, this is like it is the best game. Like as far as like everything about it, it has
Wow.
everything I want games to have in it
Mm-hmm.
mechanically. Like World War II isn't like my like favorite historical era. It's one I'm into because like, hey, it's hard not to be into World War II if you're
Sure,
doing
sure.
wargaming.
Right.
But just how it
Checks out.
operates is so good because it's like you have a pool of dice that you roll. Based on that, certain things get to activate. So you have to make these choices about like, do I send the scout team up to fish out where that machine gun's positioned, or do I like continue to go up the road with this other squad? I can't do both right now.
Hmm.
It gives you all those like, I'd kind of say like I haven't played too much ASL, but it's like has that same story generation where it does that like where ASL can generate some like crazy
Oh
stories for
yeah.
you.
Uh-huh. Yep. That's
It
my
it
favorite
does
thing about
this.
tactical games, yeah.
Yeah, it does that in spades because you're sitting there like
Hmm.
because it has like these weird. This is the thing that bold action doesn't have. Bold action is just like you. In its worst case, it's like kind of tabletop Yahtzee where you're just shooting at each other, and there's very few like unique, interesting rules. But like some of the rules in Chain of Command are stuff like armor doesn't know people are in can't shoot people in buildings until infantry has confirmed that or like let them know it's there.
Whoa, okay.
So
Yeah.
like the whole like thing where allied guys would come up on towns and have a Panzerschreck just scream out of a cafe window on them,
Hmm.
like that happens.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
It makes you do the thing that they had to do back in the day where it's like we got to send the infantry in to fish out all these AT nests.
Huh. That
So
sounds it just vaguely kind of reminds me a little bit of Last 100 Yards, which basically like the one thing it's got several things going for it, but like over ASL is like if the guys aren't in the action, they're out of the action, meaning if they can't see, they're not in it. So I'm seeing if they've got rules for fins or not.
let me see.
Because it looked like in the base game it was. Well, let's just go back here real quick.
I know
So
they do.
Britons, Germans, U.S., and Soviets come in the base rules.
Yes, the core rules have them. Most of the other stuff is accessible via. Yep, here they are. Finland Winter War.
Okay,
So
cool, cool, cool.
so I have the document for them. I
Nice.
want to say I don't know if it's out yet, but they were going to do a campaign for that whole thing.
For the Winter War?
Yeah. So what they do is they like do
Huh.
these pint-sized campaigns, and they will figure out like some situation that occurred that a platoon had to deal with,
Okay. All
and
right.
make a like 6 scenario structure of that.
Oh, that's pretty damn cool, actually. That's actually really cool.
My favorite version of that is they made one called Many Rivers to Cross that
Okay.
I think is available in one of their magazines. It was designed for early war, specifically Germans on Dutch, to
Uh-huh.
reflect like the retreating action that the Dutch were making when they first got like drove into. Because the plot is with the Germans is get across this area as fast as possible, and the other job is to like stop that from happening. The third scenario is to blow like the dike to flood this area so the armor can't get through.
Uh-huh.
But he made the scenario so it's platoon agnostic.
Mm.
So like I'm planning to use it for a I've got the Japanese. I'm waiting for Eureka to release the Chinese, but I'm going to do it for the war in China to
Mm-hmm.
make like a
Yeah.
rear action from like for Chiang Kai-shek and stuff.
Sure, sure,
Do
sure.
that theater because it's very small, but it's just like man,
Yeah.
it's so good because as long as you like if you geek out about World War II and then you have like sub theaters you really like,
Yeah, you can just focus in on.
you just go crazy. It's dangerous for that.
Oh, that sounds really good, actually. Like, that sounds really dope. By the way, Turve to all our Finnish listeners out there. Keep working on my. Okay, so we're 45 minutes into it, and I want to save time for questions and then the lightning round. We were going to talk about Necromunda. We talked about it a little bit. Necromunda is just basically like Kill Team or Warcry, but with a whole bunch of RPG and storytelling elements added in to add more like things happen outside the game, and you may want to like withdraw from a battle because it's got like permanent death and all that stuff. I thought something I don't know anything about is like, well, I guess a little bit, but like you said you're into discontinued Games Workshop stuff. So like, what does that mean and what are you into?
So around the same time that like Fantasy died, they got rid of it, probably a little bit before. They had all these things called specialist games.
Okay.
And they had a magazine called Fanatic, which is they're kind of back. We're back there just with new games, because this is second edition Necromunda. There was a first edition Necromunda that used to exist. Mordheim was a Warhammer Fantasy setting.
Yep.
Epic
Hulk.
40K, Space Hulk, War Master,
Horus
Man
Heresy.
of War. Horus Heresy is still technically supported. It's just
Really?
like mostly through Forge World.
Oh, okay. Is that the 30K stuff?
It is. It is both.
Okay.
Awesome. 30K is probably the thing I have the most miniatures from Games Workshop for, because I really like the Horus Heresy narrative. It's stupid though. It's so expensive.
Right. Yeah. So
It's
Forge
such-
World is
it's
like
such a commitment.
specialist miniatures from Games Workshop, which is already expensive.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare. And I don't even I'm very curious about like how that's going to sustain itself. So I've been more leery this year about it, but I have a solid force for it. But those games were great because like you had different rules and different scales. I loved Necromunda and Mordheim specifically because of the campaign system. Your dudes gain experience, you got to name them. There's that narrative. That's why I think Necromunda currently, the second edition, is the best of those games, because it's the only one that's like kind of super loyal to what made those old games so cool, which was all that campaign stuff.
And so, Cursed City aside, like, what are your thoughts on like Silver Tower and the space one? This like the new box? Yeah, Blackstone Fortress.
Those games it's very good for Games Workshop to do, because do you know about the joke I make now is it's the Kingdom Death Curse?
Like Kingdom Death Monster, the board game?
Yeah, that game came out and they charged $400 for it.
Right.
And it told the rest of the miniatures game industry is, hey, if you make a dungeon crawl game, everyone will buy it, and they're willing to spend $400.
Right, yeah.
Because now, like, if you look at Cool Mini or Not, they make a new one every 3 months.
Sure.
And Games Workshop's like, oh, we did // Warhammer Quest.
Bloodborne's in one of those cabinets.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Exactly. But they were like, we did Hero Quest and Warhammer Quest back in the day. What if we just did that again? And that's what these are. It's just Games Workshop is probably one of the Cool Mini or Not's pretty decent, but like you talk about flexing when it comes to making miniatures. And that's something I'll still stand like take a bullet for. It's just like GW is in its own little dimension compared to most people when it comes to making minis.
Oh, as a guy who's been in this for all of 2 or 3 weeks, I can already see that, like, you pay for what you get with Games Workshop. Like, their miniatures, like, even just looking at this, it's like, little giant, like, just comparing, like, the mold lines I'm going to have to scrape on this guy versus what's here in Games Workshop, like, the detail is freaking nuts on, like, these little guys. I mean, it's awesome. Right. So, yeah, you're kind of paying for what you get.
The other thing that really impressed me with them is, I may have mentioned this, is the engineering for those spurs, like however that's designed. I don't know what they call that stuff. Right. But like the squig set I bought, it's 10 squigs. And you have to buy like a ton of kits to do what I'm about to say. But the way the faces and the bodies hook in for each of these little like weird red monster dudes, they all fit each other. So it's an exponential diversity. So there's 100 different squigs you can make from that kit.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is stupid, because I was like, that's just so hard. That plastic spur stuff is so crazy.
Yeah, not all of them are going to come with it. Like, I had an option like, well, I don't have them over here, but, you know, like, this little assault intercessor was pretty basic. Like, he had to go together this way. But there's going to be, like, different heroes, or, like, some guys can be super customizable is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
And
the
like, I
other
think I
thing,
could have taken his helmet off him if I wanted, but like, it's war. Like, why wouldn't you wear your helmet? That's a big bugaboo with me with Games Workshop. Like, when I do my Battle Sisters, every one of them is getting a helmet. It is so dumb to me that they're not wearing their helmets. It's like,
gotta have that stern face.
mm,
The other, well, I'll link you a Pinterest board later. What's really crazy is like all this plastic stuff. The other thing it's done is the kit bashers have come out in force
yeah.
because you buy yourself a X-Acto knife, and like the thing I'm planning on getting more into is like a jeweler's kit, like a jewelry
Uh-huh.
repair kit.
Yeah.
And some like I think a couple of years ago, we suddenly realized that hey, Tamiya thin cement works with Games Workshop miniatures. Like the gunplay guys have been doing this for years.
Right.
So you
Dude,
can
I
make
watched a guy build a
goodness.
train out of a terrain set that obviously was not meant for that, and like he was using. Well, I don't like. Well, I had it here. Anyways, like the little plastic, the things you throw in the trash, and
Yeah,
it's like, and it looked great.
it's insane. There was something on my Twitter today where like they just released freaking awesome. The Hidden Knights of Slaanesh for Age of Sigmar looks so cool to me.
Mm,
But they did these new Beastmen, and back in Fantasy, there was Beastmen was one of the factions. They're still there, but they had all these like chaos versions of them. So you had what was called a Bestigor, which is just a regular like super goat man. But then they'd have plague gores and corn gores and stuff for the different chaos gods. And someone took like some plague bear, like one of the disease demons, I think dryad bits and an old beastman made a new like plague gore that looks incredible. And I was just like,
nice.
these people are monsters. One of the editor for Warhammer Community, she's on, I think I wish I knew her Twitter handle. She cranks out like conversions all the time. She's a maniac. My favorite thing she made is she took a Warlord Titan head to make for her like Necromunda tavern in her Necromunda game. So it's like a little tavern, but like the top
Wow.
building is
Yeah.
an old Titan head that's been rusted out.
Yeah, that's so cool. So before we do, I'll call for if anyone has a question, go ahead and drop them in. We'll answer them here before we're done for the night. And before we do a lightning round, we're talking. You just mentioned, and I pulled them up here, but the Hedonites or Hedonites of Slaanesh, and we're talking about all these factions. I just want to talk about, and we don't have enough time to go into detail. Oh, Kyle's Dark Uprising box just showed up tonight, and he says it's stupid big. It is stupid big, and it is all plastic. Like it is so much terrain in there. I think you're gonna dig it. I can't wait to
This is how
somehow
you
we gotta
guys are gonna
figure out
get
to
your.
do AAC Dark Uprising. So let's just talk about books real quick, and
Yeah.
because one of the things, and I've talked about this on the podcast, and I talked about this when I was painting. The most impressive thing to me with Warhammer is that the lore is not absolute garbage. Because
Yeah.
to me, it was like I first was introduced to Warhammer when like a kid in band in 7th grade came with like a Space Marine or something like that. And so to me, that's kind of what it was, is like, which really it isn't, because it's can be super expensive to get into. Like it's not meant for middle schoolers, but like I know they have 40 years to work with this, but the lore is very deep. This is eventually where I was going with that.
Yeah, no, it's insane. It's deep. It's massive. It's so massive now that there's like lore that people don't even know exists because like that universe isn't even technically here anymore. They still do books for it, sorta. Like the thing that blew me away is they're still publishing books in the Black Library for Warhammer Fantasy within their Warhammer horror genre to do like some of the vampire stuff from back there. So it's just
It's
like,
good too. Like it's not just that there's a lot and it's deep and there's like everything you can want to go look at. It's the fact that it's good. So
yeah,
the rule of
like,
thumb I've heard is like if a Dan Abnett writes it, which I've already talked about, like
yeah,
how we know him from comics. But like here's the Horus Heresy. You can't see the scale, but I'm showing it on the live stream. So I've read Horus Rising, which was fantastic. I'm on to False Gods. I'm really digging it. And so like there you've got several books just before you, then you can like, this guy that I'm showing has like broken it out to like, all right, if you want to read about White Scars or Thousand Suns or Imperial Fists or whatever, like here's the flow chart you can read. And like, what are we looking at here, folks? Like 75 books or something? I don't know. Like
I think it's at
books.
50 plus right now, somewhere around there for
It's
just
crazy.
the core narrative arc for the Horus Heresy.
Right. And then like there's this thing called Masterworks, which is the other thing I was going to mention, which is like What Games Workshop is toting as like the best of their best, reprinted in hardcover.
They're so
And
nice. They're so
two
nice.
two of those are standalone. Hell's Breach and there's another one. So, anyways, and that's just 40K. We're not even touching on the Age of Sigmar stuff. If you want to check out Age of Sigmar books, Joel Eddy Drive Through Review. He is doing like his Age of Sigmar week this week, and he's got like his top 10 Age of Sigmar books.
The other thing that I'll pitch out is there's an author called William King. He wrote fantasy books, Gotrek and Felix, which Gottrek's not dead. He literally survived the apocalypse as a character. And that stuff is the old fantasy adventures of this troll slayer and his like poetry friend are the best.
Dude, it's so God, we haven't even talked about orcs, which like the orcs like they're basically a fungus. And they're so this is I'm stealing from my buddy Zach, who knows a stupid amount of Warhammer lore. It's my brother's friend. And I'm going to get the link to Joel Eddy's video as well and post it in chat while I'm talking about this. So orcs are basically a fungus in the Warhammer fantasy, but they also have like minimal psychic powers. And basically, if the orcs know that something is true, they make it true. So the orcs know that their guns work, therefore their guns work. The orcs know that their planes work, therefore their planes work. There's no mechanical reason for it. And my favorite bit of that lore is the orcs know that this admiral or something is immortal and therefore he can't die, but it's only because the orcs believe it. And it's like that kind of stuff is hilarious. And like I just thought the orcs were like a dumb faction until I started learning about them. And it's like orcs are the best faction.
Oh, they're so good, cool. The old Paul Bonner illustrations are so good. My favorite recent orc lore was from it's like the 5th book of the Horus Heresy. It's just a Space Marine quote where he's just like, whoever has said orcs are stupid has never had to when they're like in a battle with them because they're just having a real hard time fighting all these greenskins.
That's awesome.
They're so good.
It's way better than I ever thought.
And I love them.
Good. Yeah, I guess so. Caleb's scheduled to come back for another show on a completely different topic, but we're gonna have to have like a Warhammer lore.
Yeah, I could talk about just Space Marines for like hours if you let me.
Oh, dude, and I've talked about this. That's another thing. Like once I started looking, the different chapters of the Space Marines, so cool. Like the fact they all have different traits and all these different stories, and some of them are traitors and some of them aren't, and like it's dope because I just thought they were the blue dudes and Ultramarines and like boring. No,
yeah,
awesome.
Oh man, the Ultramarines are like they're not the worst, but like for the most part, everyone's universal consensus, at least in my group, is just like the only thing worse. They're stuck up. The only thing worse than Ultramarines is word bearers.
Oh yeah, well I've just been introduced to word bearers. Word bearers in False Gods.
I think it's like book 4 or whatever. You'll be like, these guys are the worst.
All right, you ready for some questions?
Oh yeah.
All right, if you got listener questions, plug them in while we run through the lightning round. Here we go. All right, Age of Sigmar or 40K?
Ooh, sorry. I'm not sure yet. Like with 9th edition, I just got back with 40K OG and 9th edition. I think lore-wise, 40K, just because of Horus Heresy. Like I freaking love Horus Heresy.
You can't defend your answer. You just got to give your answer.
Yeah, it's okay. Like
World War II or Napoleonics?
Napoleonics all day.
Ancients or World War II?
Ancients.
Warcry or Kill Team?
Probably Warcry, and I will say I have never played a game of Warcry, and I've played a game of Kill Team.
Dude, the Warcry warbands are there's
just that. They look so good.
They do. There's a guy, Tabletop Minions, and he appears to be some people don't like him. I really like his videos. A few weeks ago, he's like, here's the cheapest way to get into any of the Warcry factions. And it's a pretty helpful video. It's cheapest and easiest chaos warbands for Warcry. And I think he's doing like one of those a week for Destruction anyways. So.
And he rules like, there's like 10 guys on the YouTube that if you're getting into the hobby, I'm just like, please find these guys' channels. Yeah. They will provide so much information.
His most important video for me is he's got a video called "Are You Getting Into the Hobby Too Fast?"
Yeah,
with ASL and stuff. I know I did. Like I didn't need those modules. Probably still don't. But like, yeah, it's like that's a good video to watch, and like my brother's already like giving me a hard time about it because well, I got some rats in pajamas. And then when I told him I got the rats in pajamas, he sent me the video knowing I had watched the video already. It's like, are you getting in the hobby too fast? Anyways. All
That's
right.
so
Gin
good.
or beer?
Oh, I think gin.
Sure.
Like if I had to go with one, I'd say gin. So the beer make you feel like trash the next day sometimes.
That is, yeah. Yeah, too true. Game you've always wanted to play but haven't.
Let's see here. I think the big one, because I have stuff for it, but have yet to play it, is General de Armée.
Oh, what's that?
So it is a 15 mil. Generally, it's a tabletop Napoleonics game for Division on Division.
Okay.
The issue is like I'm collecting for it, but I have not collected enough to actually put it on the table.
Okay. Last game you played that you didn't enjoy?
You were talking video games in Valheim. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, tabletop game that I did enjoy, probably Kill Team.
Wow. Wow. Best RPG setting?
What's the evil one? Pendragon.
Oh, nice.
If
Nice.
if I've got go down, Pendragon is incredible.
Nice. Game on your table right now?
It's going to be the I should have Thin Red Led Games Dogs of War. I haven't
Oh,
even
yeah,
like
yeah.
done
Okay.
my first turn, but it's the one I got on my table right now.
Nice.
I'm trying. If anyone has a copy of 60 Minutes they want to sell me, let me know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Someone else is asking about that game today. Gettysburg or Bulge?
I'd say Gettysburg for myself.
All right. Sci-fi or fantasy?
Fantasy all the way.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction, definitely
Yep.
fiction.
Favorite military topic to read about?
Based on what I've read the most about, it'd be Sengoku Jidai Samurai.
Oh, wow. Nice. Last great book that you read?
Last great book that I read would be Mechanicum. Does listening on audiobook count?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's most of my reading. I think I have that book, but I haven't read it yet.
It's dangerous, dude. It's so dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, that's... Are you talking about the Warhammer book?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. No, no, no. I haven't read that then. I
it's
was
super
thinking something
dangerous because it's like that stuff is the Imperial Knights, the Titans, and
Uh-huh.
just the and Horus Heresy, like Mechanicum, all in one book. So it's just like because I finished reading, I was like, I want to buy all the Titans. Like I need like
I think Graham McNeil's another considered safe Warhammer author to read.
he's really solid. I would say honorable mention is I'm re-listening to Lord of the Rings, and
Oh, dude.
it is stupid how good it is.
Dude.
Like I'm just like, how is it? It's so old. It is super good.
I just read it. It was amazing. First time reading.
Ridiculous.
I loved it. It was insane. Last bad book you read?
It's gonna be another. What was that one called? Oh, my brain just died. It's one of those. I gotta like look at the list. It's like a Horus Heresy book in that series. It wasn't like terrible, but
That's okay.
I just need to like let people. Yeah, let people be prepared
If it
for
pops
it.
in your head, let me know. Let's see. Last series you binged on TV?
The Netflix just did a like Age of Samurai like 6 episode
Is
series.
that good?
It is decent. It's very I hope Netflix keeps doing this because they're basically doing like those old History Channel shows where it was like kind of cheesy, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like lying to you about what was going on. It was just very cheesy on how it delivered it.
Sure.
That's what it's doing.
Oh,
The
okay.
thing that surprised me is the people they have talking on it because I'd say samurai stuff is one where I've read a lot about. They got all the big names. Like every historian who's like
Oh,
good about their material is on there talking at some point.
good for them. What are you playing next?
I do not know for sure. Probably, I need to post to the AAC to see like because I think I've been doing is like I'm playing RPGs, but I have yet to play an actual like except for Here I Stand. I have not done any games with the guild, and I was like I got to do some Hex Encounter with somebody.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
I was
Favorite scale?
probably 28s.
Okay. Favorite superhero?
There's superhero Hellboy all day.
Nice. I see a little Hellboy. Some. Oh man, dude. Don't. Oh my gosh, we can have a Hellboy episode, dude. Whew, getting all hot by there. I've got the Hellboy game over there. I want to paint. Oh man, Hellboy. Stop. Okay.
It's super good.
Chaos or destruction?
Chaos,
Chaos or order?
still chaos.
Sisters of Battle or Necrons?
Sisters of Battle. Holy cow.
Yeah. Plague Marines or Chaos Marines?
um, probably Plague Marines.
Nurgle.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else the other day. I was like, I might be having a change of faith. He's like, what you mean? I was like, I don't know if Nurgle's my favorite Chaos God anymore.
Nice. He also makes an appearance in False Gods. Well, not an appearance, at least I don't think so yet. But you hear his name. Tau or orcs?
Orcs for sure.
Are the orcs the most powerful army in 40k? Lore wise.
I don't know, cause like, man, Necrons, like, I know they're kind of silly, but holy cow, the scale of what they do.
Sure. Okay.
Or
Interested to hear more about that.
and Tyranids too. Tyranids are scary.
Are the orcs the best army? Now we're at your opinion.
My opinion. Oh, it's so hard. I think so. I really love.
Marvel or DC?
You just like these are like episode generators. What these are.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm like split. I think I want to say DC.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I go back and forth. I mean, there's good things about it. Kyle says he was always more of a Slanesh fan. I assume that's we're talking Gods of Chaos.
Yeah, Slanesh is legit.
Napoleonics or U.S. Civil War?
Napoleonics.
Favorite Necromunda gang?
It's gonna be Escher. Like my
Nice.
ladies.
Yeah. Last movie you watched?
Is gonna be Touch of Zen. Holy cow.
Touches in. I'm not familiar with that one at all.
It's a Chinese martial arts movie. Do you know wuxia, the genre of wuxia? Yeah, it's that
Yeah.
stuff. It's the movie that inspired Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That's the best way to pitch it.
Okay. Is it fairly recent? No, it's
No.
not. 1971.
Yeah.
Okay. Because didn't they? Well, anyway. All right. Let's go back to the question. Okay. Favorite Cthulhu story?
Back in my brain. Yeah, that's Mountains of Madness.
Nice.
Shadow Out of Time is an honorable mention because holy cow, Shadow Out of Time is like. But I can just have a rant about that one.
Save that rant. It'll be
Yeah.
better. Favorite Cthulhu themed game?
The probably just Call of Cthulhu the RPG.
Okay. Nice.
Solely
Nice.
on the
Yeah,
pre-mades. The pre-mades catalog for that game is insanity.
Sure. Nice. Canes or Bruins?
If I'm being sincere right now, it'd probably be Canes. I used to be a Bruins guy, but like I couldn't even tell you who's on the roster now.
Okay.
And I live in North Carolina, so I can go see it. Like, hopefully, I've been to 2 Canes games in the past year and a half. So like, and my parents say Canes all day because that's the reason I go. They come down here like, let's go to a hockey game.
Nice. Let's see. Favorite RPG?
Pendragon.
Not setting, just Pendragon.
Yeah.
Favorite Hex Encounter game?
Tenkai Satsu, for sure.
Nice. I gotta play that.
Hit me up, man. I will. It is my favorite. It's super good.
Best bar you've ever been to?
So, Nashville, Tennessee, there's a place called Acme Feed and Seed on Broadway. And that bar, those guys, when I was working and had to commute, go there for work, I'd spend like 3 nights a week there.
Nice.
It was such a good place. Those people were
Ah,
awesome.
Scotch or bourbon?
Scotch.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
It's another one of these like DC Marvel things for me.
Yeah.
I think these days I'd rather watch Star Trek right now. So I'd say that's
Okay.
what's my answer be.
RPGs or war games?
RPGs.
Minis or war games?
Minis.
Minis or RPGs?
RPGs.
Napoleon or MacArthur?
Oh, Napoleon.
That'll do it. You survived.
Yeah.
Not that it was ever lethal in any kind
The gas
of.
comes down. Oh no.
Yeah. Right.
How did this get in
Nice.
here?
Well, thank you very much, Caleb. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to use this time to plug your Den of the Wendigo to encourage you to get that back up and running because I really did. I know I said you was a cheerleader, but your work here is pretty cool. So I want to see more progress pics on your blog. You should.
Yeah, I need to crank some
cycle
stuff
that back
out.
up. Yeah, yeah. Just some pics would be great. Thanks for everyone who dropped by. Kyle, thanks for some good stuff. Kyle says the Patterson House, an incredible craft cocktail bar in Nashville. I've driven through Nashville several times, but I've never. I guess I've done. We went shopping there one time.
I want to say I've been to the Patterson House too, but
Nice.
it's ironically some of those Nashville nights were a pretty good blur.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I can't wait to get back to a good cocktail bar. That's why I was making Martinez's and Rob Roy's last weekend because I was craving a good gin cocktail. So,
Oh yeah.
all right, folks. Thanks for everyone who stopped by. Thank you, Caleb, and we'll be back with another some kind of topic off the table. Facebook group, Discord, Twitter, all that stuff. Twitter, your Salty Wendigo on Twitter, right, Caleb?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and History Table Pod on Twitter. All right, folks. Everyone have a good weekend.
Doo-doo.